Let me do the intro, I guess. Welcome to the first episode of the Plowing Ahead podcast. Good Lord. Was that a host? Yeah, it's a host. Thanks for the host, Ruble. So, Plowing Ahead. What this is going to be a podcast where it doesn't really have a specific theme or specific topics that we really talk about. I mean, it's going to be stuff I find interesting. So a lot of technical stuff, a lot of stuff going on in the tech world, in terms of hardware and stuff like that. Linux stuff, maybe talk about that. Computer stuff, etc. Possibly, well, we might also talk about recent world events, right? If they come up, stuff like that. And it's pretty much going to be a free for all for the most part. I am attempting to get guests. That's really the last kind of piece of the puzzle, is to set up a good system where I can have guests or people come on and talk with me, interact with me live on the show. And yeah, that should be nice. We'll have the Twitch chat, and then I'll have someone else to talk to, which is going to be nice. But for this first one, it's just going to be me. In terms of YouTube, if you're watching this on YouTube, there will be timestamps in the description, so you can hop around if you don't want to watch the whole, most likely hour-long podcast. Not really sure how long it's going to span, probably until we get through everything. So that's going to be nice. And so the plan is, on Fridays, this is what I'm going to do for the first half of the stream. I'm going to do the podcast, and then for the rest, I'm just going to do what I normally do. And play other games like The Witcher or Apex Legends. And for background, I don't know, some people like to stimulate stuff with background noise. Background footage, and this is going to be the background footage. Just me digging for most of the time, I assume, because I don't really have to pay attention to myself digging. I can just hold down a couple buttons. So yeah, that's pretty much it. If you're wondering why the name is Plowing Ahead, it's sort of a synonym for the phrase moving on, because we're going to be moving on from topic to topic, but moving on sounds kind of generic, so plowing ahead sounded better. Kind of loses its magic when I explain it, so I probably won't do that anymore. All right, so let's actually get into it. For starters, the first thing we're going to start off with discussing is the Framework laptop. I'm kind of a little bit of a tech nerd. I'm not super knowledgeable on a lot of things, but I do have a vast appreciation for tech and innovative computers, stuff like that. So the Framework laptop. Basically, let me pull up the webpage. I might actually put this up on stream as well. I can set up a window capture. Let me just check I don't have anything leaking here. All right, so this is the laptop. So it's as you can see, a thin, lightweight, high-performance 13.5-inch notebook that can be upgraded, customized, and repaired. Pretty much, it is a fully customizable and upgradable, repairable laptop, as you can see from this really nice screenshot. Everything is modular, right? You can open it up like this. You can swap out the battery. You can swap out the memory, the storage, even the main board, right? Where the CPU and the integrated GPU is, that you can swap that out in the future. They're going to be selling these separate parts in their store, and you're going to be able to buy them and replace it and basically upgrade it over time. And the whole purpose of this laptop is to be very environmentally friendly sort of thing, where instead of buying a new laptop every couple of years, you can slowly upgrade this one and use it. And it's made from, I think, mostly recyclable plastics. Let's see if we can, Framework laptop. Let's see if we can get some more details. So these are the specs. It starts off pretty light, right? You can only get 4 core CPUs. Really not that great. Starting price is $999 unless you want to assemble it yourself, and then it's about $790, something like that. So a really cool thing about this, again, it's fully modular, and they have these things called expansion cards. So rather than traditional ports built into the main logic board, for future compatibility, all the port selections are expandable. So you can, as you can see, you can have these little cards, slide them in, and they serve as, hot swappable ports. So you can have USB-C, USB Type A, you can have HDMI, DisplayPort, micro SD, and then you can have an additional storage. And these are just the things that ship with the laptop. I think it just comes with it. As you can see, it uses USB 3.2 Gen 2, so USB-C. I'm not sure if that's Thunderbolt. I mean, it's an Intel, it uses Intel CPU, so theoretically, if you wanted to pop in a Thunderbolt expansion card, you should be able to. I'm not sure if it comes with it, though. Yeah, so upgradable high-performance main board. So the main board you can swap out in the future. It's a really cool thing. I just really like this idea because, yeah, I mean, how cool is this? Right? It seems to be pretty performant, right? 60-watt turbo boost, 28-watt continuous processor load. So that should actually be pretty good. And it's fully modular. So while you might buy it now and it might not be very powerful, in about a year or two when they release new upgradable little kits, you can buy a new main board, swap it out, you can keep all your storage. This is pretty much, it tries to bring one of the main quality things about a desktop computers, which is essentially, for the most part, you can pretty much upgrade everything. Unless you get like a really crappy pre-built from Dell, which is what I have, and you can't upgrade everything. But the main point is to sort of bring some of that quality of life stuff over to the laptop world, where you can over time upgrade it and you can keep it up to date while spending the least amount of money possible. Because theoretically, if all you're looking for is an Ultrabook or a really like light, thin weight, pretty much an Ultrabook. I mean, it's not super thin, but if you're looking for a laptop to do productivity, light web browsing, not like, I mean, yeah, you're not going to buy this to do light web browsing, but if you're looking for a general purpose like laptop, if you're not trying to squeeze a lot of gaming performance or graphical performance out of it, because chances are it's not going to come with anything beyond an integrated GPU, just because of how the main board is designed. Maybe they'll be able to fit an integrated or dedicated GPU, in the future, but I doubt it. Doesn't seem like that's going to be very likely. But if that's what if you're good with that, you can end up saving. Considering that this lasts a couple years, you can end up saving a lot of money just purchasing upgrades over time rather than buying a new laptop every couple years. And that's the main issue, I guess. That's the main concern a lot of people have, is just how how safe is this, right? Like, will this be something that'll last a long time? Will this company continue to work? I think they've been working on this laptop for about 3 years, and they've just started allowing pre-orders. So fingers crossed, this company prospers, they make a lot of money off of these laptops, and they can continue putting this stuff out. We're in the DIY section now. You can, customize yourself. You can even customize the keyboard, customize the chassis. Like, you can look at that. It's crazy, right? This is a really, really cool thing. So you can see some of the things you can actually order. So if I do configure now, right? So I can get, yeah. This is DIY, so you'd have to assemble this yourself. So let's say I want the highest end thing. Wait, that's pretty expensive, actually. That's pretty expensive. Let's go for something a little more reasonable. So $750. Let's get 16 gigabytes of RAM. To be honest, the difference between these processors isn't really that big. Like, for the most part, you're gonna be fine with any of these. But if you really need the highest performance, obviously get the highest performance. But look at like the clock speeds. Like, I know it says 4.2 to 4. Yeah, no, it'll be fine. Really, it's really not, like, these processors really aren't worth the money. I would not spend, $1,500 on just this one because it's only 4 cores, right? For that kind of money, you want like at least 8 cores. So 16 gigabytes of RAM is pretty good. Can we get the 2x8 one? It's better. Dual channel, much more bandwidth. Get a terabyte, you know, and then Wi-Fi, operating system. We're gonna be cool. We're gonna use Linux, obviously, for free, and that ended up being a little like $1,000, which is really good in my opinion. Right now, again, the processor is subpar, but for the most part, right, like you get a really good storage, you get really good, you get pretty good RAM. The only thing that's really bad about this is the processor. Of course, you do have to put this together yourself. But yeah, I mean, it's a really nice looking laptop. I think you definitely want to wait until reviews come in, but I like it. You can get other really good laptops that are a lot faster in terms of processing speeds, like the MacBook Air, for example. Actually, probably a lot cheaper than this, but they won't come with the same spec level. So if you really need that 16 gigabytes of RAM, if you really want that future upgradability, and you want 1 terabyte of storage at this price for like a lightweight laptop, this is really nice. This is really good, I would say. Can I approve my CPU letter? Yeah, so pretty much check out the website, frame.work. It's really cool. I'm going to read chat in a minute. I don't have chat open right now. Maybe I should. I just really quick want to take a look at how just the non-DIY one, the one that comes pre-configured or pre-built for you, how that compares in terms of price. So that's $9.99 if you get this. Yeah, okay, so very similar. Like I said, I wouldn't really get this one. I would probably get the lowest end model if this is something people are interested in buying. I don't think anyone watching right now is going to be interested in buying. I would get this one because, yeah, these just really aren't that good. And I would get the DIY one because it's a little cheaper. And if you're buying this laptop, it means you're not afraid to poke around and upgrade things later. And being able to build it from scratch is a good idea, is good experience, in my opinion. So there you go. Now I'm going to, totally not sponsored. No, we're not sponsored. All right, now I'm going to read chat a bit. Oh, no one has said anything. Cool. So no questions, nothing like that. Framework laptop. No comments. I think it's a really cool thing. I don't know. I mean, that base configuration was $199, or not 190. That was $1,000. I have a laptop right now that had the exact same configuration or very similar. That was worth $600. I have a laptop right now. I spent $600 on it. It has an i5 1135 G7, single channel 8 gigabyte 3200 megahertz RAM, and 512 gigabytes of storage. So it's very similar. So obviously, like, people would go, okay, well, why would I want to buy that or like that over this? Why shouldn't I just buy the? Oh, I'll get back to that. I spilled some water. I'll get back to that. All right. Where was I? Shut up. Fuck you. You dick. Oh my god, my mouse pad is soaked. Right. I'm gonna dry it out. I'm gonna get my other mouse pad out. It's really crappy, but whatever. It's dry, which is the nice part. And my table is not dry, which fucking sucks. Oh shit. Fuck me. Alright, there we go. Now I have a dry mouse pad. So, what I was saying earlier was, why buy that, $100 or $1,000 framework laptop rather than just get like on a Dell laptop that has the same specs for considerably less. And that sort of just depends on your use case, if I'm being honest. Like, obviously, if you don't need upgradability, for $1,000, you can get a much better laptop. Or for $600, you can get a laptop with pretty much the same specs. The unique part is, like the future repairability and upgradability, right? This is a completely open laptop. It's not open source, at least I don't think it is, but, chances are, like, the concept of it is a very good idea and hopefully is executed well. Because, yeah, I mean, you can essentially upgrade it however you need in the future. You can customize the look and appearance of it. You can get port selection you want. It's a future-proof computer, future-proof laptop, unless you need like a dedicated GPU. But in terms of like a thin and light laptop, this is a future-proof type thing. It is a very good thing, but obviously it's not ideal for someone on a budget. So yeah, it's kind of, and I don't usually recommend people buy products for future updates, right? But for how like it'll perform in the future. But in this case, like, yeah, I mean, the whole point of this laptop is the future, right? And this is really good. Like, previously, the only really upgradable laptops that you can fully upgrade, like swap out various different parts, were chunky, workstation replacements. And even then, like, those were not very serviceable. This aims to, fix that up, and hopefully in the future we can have, even more of these laptops where like you have a dedicated graphics card and stuff like that would be really great. Is that going to happen? I don't know. It really depends on how well this first product does, but I think it'll really do well amongst enthusiasts, not so much casual people. But yeah, no, I'm hopeful. I think that it's going to be a really cool product, and I hope that it ends up succeeding. All right, since we have no commentary about this in le chat, let's get on to the next thing, which is also kind of, I don't know, similar type thing. It is a keyboard. It's a keyboard. Let's see. Let me go into OBS real quick. Window capture. It is the launch configurable keyboard. Sorry, give me a second. All right, so this is a very cool keyboard. It's by System 76, which is a company that I love. I love System 76. Great company. It's US based though, so pretty much for all you people. Yeah. So this is a really interesting keyboard because it is open source. You can go on the System 76 GitHub and you will see, designs of this laptop. You'll be able to see like the chassis and stuff. I don't really know how to describe it that well because I'm not, really good with that stuff. Like, let me see if I can pull it up. System 76 GitHub. All right, this has open firmware. There we go. There we go. Yeah. So, the chassis, you can see CAD designs of it. It's really cool. It's completely open source. And it actually seems like to be a really well-built keyboard. Right, let me look at it. It uses box switches, Jade box switches, which I really like. Or, sorry, Kale box switches. These are Jades. These are Royals, and I really like the sound of those. Those are some of my favorite sounding mechanical switches. It has a really nice design. It also has a really unique layout. Like, if you take a look here, it's kind of it's like a TKL layout, but it's kind of different, right? There's the spacebar split into two. The Windows key is like really far from here. The control is slightly bigger than on most keyboards. There's a little offset. It's an interestingly designed keyboard, but I like it. think it works well, and I think the point of this is to be very ergonomic and very upgradable. Like, again, you can hot swap all of these. I think it comes with, you can't see it here, but yeah, you can switch these around. Obviously, these are hot swappable keys, or not hot swappable. These are, you can pop the keys off because it's a mechanical switch, mix them around, and I believe the key switches are also hot swappable. Yeah, they just seem like really nice keyboards. Obviously you can take a look at this.
Customize your layout.
That's loud. Because it has open firmware, you can customize the layout of it, right? You can customize it however you want, and it's built into the keyboard, so you can switch devices and it'll keep the exact same layout, which is nice for people like Dane who use a specific layout. And I'm sure that if they got this keyboard and use it on multiple devices, he would not, want to swap different, like have to reprogram it all the time.
Easily customize your hardware to match the keycap sizes are designed for easy interchangeability.
Yeah, so it comes with
provided keycap puller. Launch
comes with a keycap puller,
designed,
and it comes with multiple colors like blue, red. This for all these kinds of keys, which is nice. It's just a very interesting keyboard, and of course you can customize it. It's open source, but one thing I will say, and it works with everything. It has really nice LEDs. There's two issues I have with this keyboard. So one, the price. It is basically for enthusiasts. It's people who are actually really into keyboards and will 100% upgrade it, utilize its features to the max. Otherwise, if you don't plan on changing your layout, if you don't really care about having a custom layout, you just want a box standard keyboard, you can get a keyboard considerably cheaper, probably half this price. But so it is pretty priced, but you have to think about what you're getting. You're getting really good support, just customer support. System 76 is amazing customer support. Getting completely open source firmware. Any problems you have with the keyboard, you can instantly resolve because it's open and the community has probably already done it. You get a really neat layout. It's more ergonomic, probably better for you to type with. It's fully customizable. It's a really nice layout. It's just, you have to consider it. So I think for most people, probably not for them. However, I hope that it's a really quality keyboard, by the way. Like, it has PCB switches. I think they're double shot. I'm not sure, it doesn't specify. And it's also a USB hub, right? It's a really fast USB hub. So as you can see here, you can plug in various things. It's a really cool keyboard. So yeah, I think for enthusiasts, this is really good. And I think eventually, I hope that System 76 is able to push out cheaper products, similar products to the launch keyboard, maybe like a launch keyboard light, where it's like, I don't know, not as high quality or something, but for the most part, it seems really, really nice. And of course, they have a bunch of other products, but that's System 76 for you. All right, I guess we can move on to the next thing. And this does not require a website. NVIDIA recently announced RTX 3050s. Actually, I am going to pull up the webpage just so I can. So, NVIDIA recently announced that they would be releasing RTX 3050s in laptops within the next. What? Does it specify when it's releasing these things? Doesn't specify. I would assume by the end of June. So they say that these laptops are going to start at $799, so $800, which is really good. Because if you're in the market for a GPU, or if you're in the market for, a lot of computer upgrades or just a new computer, and you're like, I want to get something, but I don't really know, I don't really have anything, GPU wise, I can't afford one. Basically, if you're not an enthusiast or really passionate about building your PC, or you don't already own a desktop or whatever, these are going to be really good because RTX 3050s are more mainstream cards, right? They're less for enthusiasts. They're less for people who want to push their computer to the limits. They're more about being more mainstream, being more budget friendly. And I think at $800, that's a really good price. Like, of course, you can buy like a 3060 for like $400, but depending on the different specs in these computers, that might actually be really worth buying. And what I'm really hopeful for is that these RTX 3050s are also going to be released for the desktop. Me personally, I think it might have been a good purchase from myself because this year I've been looking for a laptop, which I got already earlier this month, and I'm also looking for a new graphics card. And a 3050 Ti does not seem like a bad choice for me. The only thing I'm concerned about, right, like in terms of performance, like it is going to be way better than my current GPU, which is a 1063 gigabyte. It'll be way better, but it only has 4 gigabytes of VRAM, which I think in today's day and age, kind of little. You need at least 6 nowadays, in my opinion. Maybe the desktop version will come with more. I don't really know, but 4 gigabytes of VRAM, that's pretty low. So I have 3. Like, yeah, no, it's low. I want at least 6. So yeah, that's something I'd like. But in terms of, you get RTX support, which honestly, when a 3050, you're not going to be using RTX that much. It's not powerful enough. There's not enough RT cores for that. However, for, DLSS, NVIDIA broadcast technology like that, that will be with this card. And it's a mainstream card. It's going to be an entry-level card, I'm hoping. It'll be in these $800 laptops, and I think that's a really good price range nowadays. And it will also be and also likely later this year released as a desktop GPU, which is going to be really nice. So, really nice. So 3050, really good for the tech world right now, especially a lot of people who can't afford graphics cards. I can't find them in stock anywhere, which is a real issue right now. Hopefully these laptops will be really good. They're planning on, say, releasing 140 of them. 140 plus. And it comes with all the really nice features of Ampere, which is, I believe, the generation of 30 series cards. So yeah, DLSS, NVIDIA broadcast, all things that are really nice to have in a mainstream card nowadays. Like these features are really nice. Again, the only thing you're really not going to be able to do is obviously RTX, but it's really, I can take it or leave it. Rasterization still looks really nice to me. The Witcher 3 uses rasterization, and it's a game from 5 years ago. So, and it looks really clean, in my opinion. Yeah, ray tracing just, I don't know, it isn't there yet. Like, it's really nice, and eventually it will be huge. Eventually, ray tracing will be everywhere. Just not yet. It just doesn't look good enough yet. And I think for minor ray tracing effects, right, like 3050 should be okay, I hope. Right, if you're someone who really wants to use ray tracing, like obviously you're gonna have to play with a much lower frame rate. But if you're into that, like if you're down to trade in frame rate for better graphical quality in certain games that don't really require fast frame rates, then yeah, that's for you. I might do that. Again, that is if I buy that card. I'm more so hoping to get my hands, and this is sort of segueing into the next thing, which honestly we don't really have much information about this. But we did get a leak earlier. I think last week there was a leak last week concerning AMD's new lineup of cards, the more mid-range 6000 series Radeon cards, RX 6600 and 6600 XT. Now, I'm really excited for these. I like AMD. I think AMD is like, it'd be pretty nice for a better Linux experience because they have better drivers. They have open source drivers, right? The open source driver is really nice compared to NVIDIA's open source drivers. So you're gonna have a lot less driver issues. On Linux, and now AMD really doesn't perform Like it's actually a competitor in terms of raw performance. It's very similar to Nvidia, um, which is going to be good. But where it's lacking is the features, of course. But yeah, for just let me get back to the whole Linux thing. For Linux, it'll be really nice because yeah, you get a better graphic driver experience. You get, I guess, slightly better GPU pass through support because I'm assuming because you don't have to do any like ROM patching or anything like that. So that's one less step. Uh, you don't. I I believe you don't really. I'm not sure if you have to hide the vendor ID of your card. If you guys don't know what I'm talking about, that's fine, right? I seriously expect no one in this chat to understand this little GPU pass-through thing, or maybe on YouTube even. I think it's only for a few select people who actually use Linux and use virtual machines. However, I think they're a little better for virtual machines, especially Mac OS, because you can pass through it to a Mac OS virtual machine. So if I get one of those cards, I'll be able to run Mac OS on my computer, which is going to be really sweet. I guess I don't really. Mac OS isn't really an operating system for me, but just the fact that I'd be able to run it on a machine where I can also run everything else would be really nice, especially considering it's way cheaper than any Mac with its spec level, even though it is very overpriced regardless. Man, I'm getting tired. My mouth's getting sore from talking this much. So the AMD cards, but that's just a better Linux experience. I am worried about price though, obviously, because the shortage. These are probably going to go out of stock real quick. People buying them up, and the prices will skyrocket. They won't stay at MSRP. But I'm wondering because, like the last 600 version of their card, like the last 5600 XT, the MSRP was $280. Now, if the RX 6600 XT is $280, that's going to be amazing because I'm likely going to be able to get it at a more reasonable price than anything. I've seen RTX 3060s going as far as $430. I've seen 1660 Supers going to $430, which is insane for me. I think that's crazy. Like, who would pay that much for a 1660 Super? But I've also seen, because I live next to a Micro Center, and Micro Center has the best new GPU prices I've seen. Probably because they don't have to raise prices that much. They don't go out of stock as much because you have to buy the GPUs in store, and there's only one per household. So they can afford to keep the prices a little bit down. Or rather, they have no reason to mark them up as high as some cards, but they've also been marking up really high-end cards, like insanely high, probably because of lack of supply. I'm assuming, but no one buys them because it's like $2,000 for RX 6900 XT. Like seriously. However, I am hoping that the prices of the cards, the AMD cards, whether it be the 6600 or the 6600 XT, are within about $50 of MSRP. I'm trying to shoot for a card that is priced at around the MSRP of a 3060. Because I'm also going to be selling off my GPU, my current GPU, once I buy the card, so that I can sort of make back what I lost. So I don't end up taking a big of a hit. I might miss that GPU when it comes to future endeavors, like GPU pass-through, but honestly, it's for the best. But this is all just speculation. I do hope that, they're able to maintain stock on these cards, and while the performance might be the same, it probably won't be as worth buying if they don't come with good features. Because like I said earlier, Nvidia has really sweet features on their cards, like NVIDIA Broadcast, where they utilize RT cores to do things like background noise cancellation or suppression. They use, really good virtual backgrounds, like, in the crappens you see in Zoom, but this time it's like way better because it uses the RT cores. So it's way more consistent. It's basically like a green screen. And obviously, DLSS is huge for edging out performance in higher end titles and also just in the future. Like, I would love to have DLSS on my current card, because then I wouldn't have as low frames as I would nowadays, because, it does help. But AMD doesn't have DLSS yet. What it does have is FSR, or rather, it will have FSR. FSR, Fidelity Effects Super Resolution. I think that's the acronym. Correct me if I'm wrong. Is something that AMD is planning on releasing later in June, or I'm not sure. They're planning on releasing these 6600 cards in June. I hope that FSR is out before then, but they're working on perfecting this. They're really working on this feature, and I'm happy for that. I'm happy that it isn't just coming out right away, because it should be as good as DLSS, because otherwise it's going to be kind of it's I'm not saying it'll deny me getting an AMD card, but it'll be kind of like bittersweet for me to buy an AMD card without a good enough super sampling type thing. Because obviously, yeah, it's pretty nice to have in areas where your graphics card doesn't perform as well. It's nice to be able to gain back some performance with that at higher resolutions and higher graphical settings. So we'll see. Hope, but it won't be available. I think it'll only be available for the RDNA 2.0 cards, so the 6000 series and up, obviously. But for now, we're at the 6000 series cards. I don't know if anyone actually is aware of this. I don't know who actually keeps track of GPU stuff. I do. I'm interested in it. But yeah, that's pretty much the graphics cards news. AMD 6000 series coming up. Hopefully they're good, and the RTX 3050s are coming out on laptops, and probably by the end of June or something. Don't quote me on that. I'm not actually sure what the release date is, but that's going to be really huge for people, especially the prices that they listed at, right? Starting at $800, right? So probably you're paying $900 to get a really decent, decently spec'd laptop with good performance. That is going to be really solid, I think. That's going to help a lot of people who are sort of just missing out in the computer game right now, don't really have enough money to buy all these chips that are out of stock, or don't really want to build a computer. A lot of people just don't like building computers. It's not something they're into, and they'd much rather have a laptop for portability, or just so it's pre-built. And in that case, yeah, that's actually going to be a really good laptop purchase for mainstream users. All right, before we get into the next topic, I am going to refill the water that I spilled, grab a drink, and we're going to be right back. I'm also going to do an ad break because I want that money, bro. But also, yeah, just because there's no reason not to do an ad break. So we'll be right back. All right, ad break is over. That's who we're sponsored by. People on YouTube will not understand that because they won't see the ads. I'm just joking, by the way. I'm not sponsored by anyone. I wish I was, but I'm not. All right, so no one has joined. I mean, I've been sitting in VC this whole time. No one has bothered to join me. Wow, so sad. That might actually be my whole plan, is just to wait in VC until someone joins and then force them to be my guest on the podcast. Also, I just realized there's really no reason, since I'm not talking with anyone, there's really no reason for me to have my headphones on, which is nice. I don't really like having them on. I have to wear them all day for school, obviously, so get kind of tiresome. But anyway, let's get into the next topic. So the next topic is going to be Twitter's subscription service, which all right. So Twitter has begun working on a subscription service. It's apparently called Twitter Blue. That's not the confirmed name, but that's what it seems like. It's Twitter Blue, and I think that's what it could be called, Twitter Blue. And at the moment, it's going to be priced at $3 a month. Now you might be wondering, hey, why would I pay for this? Like, why would I pay this subscription $3 a month for a free platform where I could just make a free account? Well, we'll see. So it looks like it's going to have a couple exclusive features. There's going to be this feature called Collections, which will allow you to save and organize your favorite tweets to make them easier and just easier to find at a later date. Guess that could be interesting. Additionally, it will also have an undo tweets feature, which basically gives you a certain amount of time. Like it'll, I think, there's going to be like a short wait period after you send out a tweet for you to be able to check it for grammatical mistakes, stuff like that, and be able to, undo it. So you cancel the sending or whatever, or I don't know, edit it or something. But pretty much before you post a tweet, like you can read it and then it'll send out before posting on your page, which is interesting. I guess it's kind of like an edit button, but you pay $3 a month to be able to edit your tweets, which is kind of crappy, but whatever. Just don't pay. Just read your tweet. Here's the thing. I don't think this is worth $3 a month. I just don't think it's worth $3 a month. What are you getting for $3 a month? Right? You could easily use common sense and proofread your tweet before you send it out. You could also, if you want to save your favorite tweets or whatever, I don't know, like make a Excel document or something. I don't know. It just seems kind of extra. It seems like very minor features that I wouldn't want to pay for. And I'm not sure it's going to do so well, if I'm being honest. The CEO of Twitter, what's his name? Jack Dorsey, basically said, last July, I think, that Twitter would set a really high bar for when Twitter would ask customers to pay for aspects of Twitter. And if collections, being able to save your tweet in a collection, like save your favorite tweets in collections of things and undo tweet, if that's a really high bar, then yeah, I don't know, it doesn't seem like that. So yeah, this basically just rumors at this point, but they don't seem very promising. Yeah. I don't know. People on YouTube, if you're watching this, what do you think? I should probably interact with you more. I don't know, leave a comment or something. Yeah, like what do you really would this be something you'd buy? I don't know. It doesn't seem very good. I don't think I think it's dumb that you have to pay $3 a month for an edit feature and basically a place to store links which you can get for free. Might be like a little more effort, or might be slightly, relieving to be able to, just have a button to add it to a collection or undo your tweet before it gets sent out. But with common sense, you can avoid paying $3 a month. If you're some rich person and you have that leisure, go ahead. I just think it's dumb. I don't see much of a point in it. But, that's... Feel free to let me know. And also, I don't know, it's just because I had to pause a lot, or, I waited 10 minutes at first or whatever. But we've already hit an hour, which is pretty crazy. I'm not sure if I'm going to cut any of the parts in the middle out, like me spilling water or me going on my ad break. I don't think I'm going to cut that out for YouTube viewers because, yeah, I'm lazy. I don't really want to watch through the whole thing to find out every little thing to cut out. The whole point of this was to, well, I mean, I'm going to have to watch the whole thing for timestamps anyway. Oh, fuck. Whole point, the main reason I'm doing this is because I like I like talking to people about things I'm interested in. I like talking about things I'm interested in. And I normally just do the same exact thing on just while I'm regularly streaming, just less organized. And also, yeah, I basically do the same thing. I just talk about these things exactly how I do them now, pretty much when I'm normally streaming. However, it's really hard for me to, combine that because it's really unorganized and because it's kind of random. I can't really, throw it into a highlights video. Like I used to do highlights. I tried like 2 times. I made like 2 highlight streams, I think, uh, or highlight videos of streams, but they didn't really turn out well, in my opinion. Because yeah, it was just mostly random clips. It was kind of scattered all over the place. It doesn't really work well. It's kind of hard to do that. So hopefully now that it's more organized, it'll be a lot easier to put on YouTube. Okay, what's the next topic? Oh, alright, this is gonna be the last thing, unless someone magically saves it in chat. But I did want to talk about my experience doing single GPU pass-through on Linux. And I'm gonna go into it because I'm really interested in this topic. I'm very passionate about it. So people might be wondering, single GPU pass-through, what's that? Linux, what's that? I can't answer the Linux one for you because yeah, no, it'll take too long. TLDR, it's a really awesome operating system. Not really, it's a kernel that people build operating systems on top of. Anyway, Linux has this really neat thing called KVM, which is kernel-based virtual machine. It has that technology built in the kernel, which is the part of an operating system that bridges between the software and the hardware of a computer. And what a kernel-based virtual machine does is it allows for really high performance virtual machines because it's very close to bare metal performance, which means it's like the operating system is running right on top of the hardware because it's interacting with a kernel, so it has very very good hardware access. I guess it can utilize hardware very well. It's very fast. It doesn't have to go through layers of software like in VirtualBox. It's a very fast system that is only available in the Linux kernel, so you have to use a Linux distro to be able to gain access to it. And this actually works really well for Linux because on Linux, I think if you're a Linux user, you also have the most reasons to probably make virtual machines, particularly to use other operating systems, either for testing or compatibility issues on Linux. Like not everything runs on Linux, specifically games, right? This is the main reason I did this single GPU pass-through thing is games don't work well on Linux. Or rather, no, they do. They work well. Multiplayer games with anti-cheat do not work well because anti-cheat is really no like mainstream popular anti-cheat that's used on that is also like ported on Linux, right? Like for example, yeah, just anti-cheat support on Linux is terrible, and I'm not locking in for some reason. There we go. Can I do that again? Thank you. There are certain anti-cheats, like Easy Anti-Cheat is technically ported to Linux, but you can't run, for the most part, not many games on Linux are ported natively. Like they don't run natively. You have to use a translation layer, like Wine or Proton, which Proton is, I guess, just built upon Wine, which pretty much translates, Windows, applications to Linux. They translates their commands and their actions to Linux in real time. So what that pretty much means is you're running, games specifically on Steam. Steam's where this is mainly supported, Proton is developed by Valve for game compatibility on Linux, and it works extremely well. And yeah, so yeah, you use Proton or Wine, I guess, as a translation layer to be able to run games, and it works really well. However, yeah, anti-cheat doesn't work with, because Linux anti-cheat does not work with the Windows anti-cheat, even if it's translated, and you can't translate the Windows anti-cheat to work on Linux. That's pretty much. Now, there is a current port, and a lot of popular games use easy anti-cheat. So there is actually a port going on, I think, where they're bringing Windows anti-cheat to Linux, so you can actually play these easy anti-cheat games on Linux, which is going to be awesome, and pretty much means I won't really have to use a virtual machine that much. But for multiplayer anti-cheat games that require Windows, you pretty much have to use a virtual machine. Even then, certain anti-cheats will check for virtual machines, and they'll actually ban virtual machine players, which is kind of annoying, because virtual machines can be used for cheating, but they're a lot more easier cheats than using virtual machines. And if you want to use a virtual machine, you got to be pretty technical. So I think that banning all virtual machine players is kind of crappy. I think that anti-cheats should be more optimized for detecting if cheating is going on and then banning, rather than just straight up banning all virtual machine players, like Valorant's anti-cheat Vanguard does not work in virtual machines, because it's like a very deep invasive type thing, and just doesn't like virtual machines. But that's besides the point. So in order to play things, I play Apex Legends a lot. In order to play Apex Legends while I'm using Linux, either I can dual boot Windows, so have to go into Windows, or I can make a virtual machine and use the virtual machine. That way, I don't really like Windows. I don't really like the crappy bloat and stuff it has, and it's a lot more manageable when it's in a containerized environment. I don't really have to have a lot of crap on it. Like at the moment, my current Windows installation is just so bloated, has so much background processes, so much crap going on, that it's really annoying to work on stuff. Like it actually ends up being faster for me to use a virtual machine, because it's a clean install. It doesn't have any crappy bloat, doesn't have shitty antivirus running around doing annoying crap. Sorry. And the boot times are a lot faster because of that, right? It's in a virtualized environment. Now, once I get an SSD, then it'll be like considerably faster to boot. At the moment, it's kind of the same. But I did want to try it, even though I don't have an SSD yet. Or rather, I have an SSD for Windows, but it's 128 gigabytes. So I have a 120 gigabyte drive for my operating system and a couple applications that I use often. And then I have a 2 terabyte HDD for everything else. Media, other applications like games, stuff. It's very slow. I hate it. And I don't have any space on the 128 gigabyte SSD to put Linux on it. So I'm waiting until I can get an SSD. And then I'm going to throw Linux onto there. And then that's when I'll fully switch to Linux. But last week I did want to try out single GPU pass-through. So, oh man, this is really getting into the rabbit hole here. I don't know if people are still keeping on. So, virtual machines. You use a virtual machine to play anti-cheat games on Linux, or rather, so you don't have to reboot into Windows, because unless you have 2 GPUs, or you have one dedicated GPU and an integrated GPU, and this is just display output based. You can do this thing where you can pass through a GPU that you have to a virtual machine. What pass-through is it basically passes through whatever's connected to your real-life hardware, what's your physical hardware, and it passes it through to the virtual machine. So the virtual machine acts like, it's a virtual machine, right? But it acts like, when you pass through your graphics card, for example, it acts like there's an actual graphics card in the PCIe 16X slot in the virtual machine. Pretty much. That's the best way I can describe it, really. That's what pass-through is when you pass it through so that it connects directly to the virtual machine, rather than uses, goes through your software. Now, stuff for CPUs. CPUs actually support virtualization, and you can split up your CPU you can split up your processor and very easily your virtual machine will very easily be able to utilize it in a KVM. However, GPUs are different. You can't split up your GPU into like virtual GPUs at least not yet. However, you can pass through the entire GPU to the virtual machine, which is really nice. And what that lets you do is, of course, be able to play games with graphical acceleration, right? As if you're actually playing on Windows. Because if you're not, then you're going to get terrible graphical performance, right? There's no display acceleration. There's no graphics card there, right? Your virtual machine won't be able to really run games at all. So you need to pass through a graphics card. Now, in my situation, I technically have an integrated GPU, but because of the way that my firmware is set up, the BIOS, it automatically shuts down the integrated GPU when I have a dedicated GPU plugged in or on my system. So I can't actually use the integrated GPU. So I'm stuck with a single GPU. And the reason you want two GPUs normally for GPU pass-throughs, so you have one GPU that goes directly to your virtual machine and that you use to run games and whatever, and then you have the other one that goes to your main operating system, and then you can, of course, do whatever you want on like Linux, and then have a virtual machine for Windows games. Pretty much, that's what it's for. But I only have one GPU available, so I have to pass through the whole GPU, and I have to switch my display output and stuff to. Well, I don't have to switch my display output. It just automatically switches to the Windows virtual machine. So it's basically like rebooting into Windows. It's like dual booting, but it's a lot faster, theoretically. Right now I'm on an HDD, so of course it's going to be practically the same speed, but that's basically the premise. That's the explanation that I'm giving before I get into my experience. And okay, so a single GPU pass-through is a bit complicated in the sense that there's a lot of stuff that you do have to do. There's quite a bit of stuff that you do have to do to make sure it works properly, because what you essentially have to do is you have to hijack your GPU from your main operating system or your host operating system and attach it to your guest operating system. And then when you shut down the guest operating system, you have to unhijack the GPU or rejack it, whatever. You basically have to reattach it back to the host operating system. It's a really interesting process. You do have to have a fair amount of technical knowledge before you do it. Unfortunately, it's not like something that's you can easily like set up a script and it runs for you in like 5 seconds. Now you have to spend. It took me 2 hours to get working, but it was definitely worth it. It was a really fun experiment, you could say. And yeah, I really like doing it. So, and it worked well. Like it pretty much worked first try. I did have to do a little workaround with for NVIDIA GPUs. You do have to hide the fact that it is like a virtual GPU. You have to add a couple lines in your XML file. Like I'm not going to get into exactly how to do the virtual machine, but you do have to hide it and make it seem, I don't know, so that NVIDIA doesn't pick up the fact that it's in a virtual machine. Up until recently, though, NVIDIA added support for virtualization, so you no longer have to do that. You can, or GPU pass-through, you can pass through your GPU to your virtual machine without having to do that, and your graphics drivers will work perfectly fine. I was just having issues with drivers, so I had to edit, the way that the virtual machine was set up so that it didn't detect that it was in a virtual machine. But it was really easy. Like again, you have to add 3 lines. That's it. It's really simple. Very simple lines. They're not even long lines. Yeah, and like I said, it worked flawlessly. Not flawlessly, but yeah, it pretty much worked. The performance, I did benchmark it with Geekbench. Geekbench isn't great, but I already had Geekbench scores from like previous, I don't know, a month or 2 months ago or something when I ran benchmarks on my main PC. So like, might as well. And the scores were practically the same, right? They were the same. They were a little higher, but that's probably because I had some processes running on my PC at the time, right? So yeah, it basically ran bare metal. So performance was good. The only problem I had was audio. My headset is it uses aux ports, so input output, for headset and microphone. And the only way to pass that through is to pass through your sound card, whatever you use. And I had I have an integrated sound card, so it's an Intel sound card. And I think the only way to do that is to the only way to pass through that is to pass through the entire chipset, which I'm not really sure, but I don't think it's a very good idea. I don't think it's very stable. Um, I don't think that's something that people should do. I'm not really sure. I didn't really find much information about that. So what I have to do is I have to get an external sound card the next time I have to set up that virtual machine, because I'm not going to be using it now since it's on my HDD. There's no point. I just wanted to do it as a fun exercise, just to see if I could do it with my graphics card, and I could. It was really easy. Again, only took 2 hours, which is a pretty small amount of time. Yeah, and so I have to get an external sound card or like an adapter, USB adapter, in order to pass through my audio. But apart from that, worked really well. And in a couple months' time, I'll be doing it once again. Uh, you know, I'll have to do it again once I do a fresh install of Linux. And yeah, I just wanted to talk about it because I think it's really cool. And anyone who is, a tech enthusiast who wants to use. Right. Anyone who wants to use Linux or uses Linux but has some app compatibility issues or wants to play anti-cheat games, um, it is really fun. It is a viable solution, in my opinion, to be able to quickly access other operating systems and then quickly go back to your host operating system. Of course, yeah, it takes a little time because, with a single GPU anyway, because you have to pass it through and it's basically like rebooting. But, if you have an AMD card, you can use macOS. If you have an SSD, boot times are going to be a hell of a lot faster, and you get to keep Windows in a virtualized environment, which is really cool because, yeah, it's kind of bloated. It's not, I don't know, I don't like Windows. I'd rather not use it as my main operating system, and I'd rather not have it like actually on my drive. If I only used it to play games, then it's kind of like not a waste of space necessarily, but I'd rather have it on a virtual disk so that I can more easily transfer it and move it around and manage it. So that's pretty much it. That's all I really wanted to say about my whole GPU pass-through experience. And I think that pretty much ends off the first episode of Plowing Through. I know there was some issues, in terms of me having to pause a lot due to issues like me spilling water or really annoying background noise. But now I'm hoping it gets better in the future, and I hope that people who are watching this, if anyone's watching this on YouTube, enjoys it. Again, timestamps are going to be in the description, and that pretty much ends it off. All right, cool.